Hello everybody. So today we have the opportunity to take a look at some more treasure from the past, art quality antiques as I like to call them. Now we should thank my art shipper, the Packingers, who managed to have some space in a cargo jet, and that's why I have this piece earlier than anticipated. Now I usually keep a shank on me at all times. We just need to open up this plastic. Ooh, this really is beautiful. The finest black marble, a Nero Portoro. This is a relevant thing to take a look at because it will help you, especially if you're new to the subject of furniture from the past. You're trying to get an idea of what types of antiques are valuable and why. The best thing you can do is to take a look at as many good pieces as you can possibly find. And so what you're about to see is a really stunning example of one of the rarer and more sophisticated moments in the history of furniture, the Charles X style, which is known for the finesse of its inlays. In fact, it is considered to be the height of the art of inlay or marquetry, at least in terms of precision in furniture history. And the beginning of the style is known for its rather striking use of blonde woods. In this case, if we can rip through this plastic, we will see that they have really wedged the plastic under the marble, but we will see that we're dealing with bird's eye maple. Look at that. I have absolutely no regrets. So why don't we take a look at this Nero Portoro marble, which is a very special marble that's quarried in Italy and in Corsica. Sometimes it is found in France, and it's known for having these scattered golden yellow veins. Sometimes those veins are more gray, and then the marble is known not as a Portoro, but a porte-argent, like a silver port. Now the name likely comes from the town Porto Venere, where Louis XIV exploited the quarries of this marble to decorate Versailles. But the marble has been used during the later part of the 18th century and clearly the early part of the 19th century for decorative arts, up into the 20th century, sometimes found on pieces in the Art Deco style. We should also note how well these yellow veins seem to reflect this deep golden color of the maple. It's as if this was planned out by someone who was very good at designing furniture. It's fairly special to see a Charles X piece to begin with, but it's especially interesting to see such a fine one. You could see one of this caliber, although without any inlay, on display in the home museum of former French statesman and literary giant Chateaubriand. And the art shipper was so generous in their use of foam that we don't even have space alongside this museum quality piece to cram the excess plastic. So how about I go ahead and get this piece out of the box and we continue the video. Harder than expected. That marble was very heavy, perhaps the heaviest that I have ever dealt with in 7 or 8 years. But this is a piece that can be used as a benchmark against which we judge other pieces of the same variety just by virtue of its quality. Pretty beautiful, I will say. But it also presents the added perk of being signed in 2 places by one of the most famous makers of the day, Antoine-Nicolas Lesage, who lived from 1784 to 1841. There's his ink stamp, Lesage at number 2, Street of the Battlefield Barn, Rue de la Grange Batelière, à Paris, in Paris of all places, of course. And we can slide the marble back and take a look at the second beautiful and historically relevant ink stamp on this piece. It's actually quite rare to have signed furniture from this time because signing pieces, stamping them, was no longer mandatory as sort of a tax law thing. But some makers were signing pieces still out of tradition or a type of discreet pride. But they certainly didn't stamp or sign all of their pieces, so this is really nice to be able to see that. Now, Mr. Lesage is listed as a maker, but he was also sort of a dealer, a supplier. He ran a very large enterprise that sold all sorts of different pieces in Paris. He was also inspector of the Garde-Meuble de la Couronne, which is the National Royal Furniture Reserve, which is now operating still, but under the name Mobilier National. We've used their online collection as sort of a reference point to give a little bit of third-party legitimization to some of the pieces which I continue to claim are objectively relevant and worth looking at. And anyway, speaking of that, there is still a Lesage piece in Mobilier National, synchronistically. The institution for which he was inspector, whatever that entailed, still conserves today a table desk in rosewood, which I believe was ordered for the Tuileries. We can see a photo of it in this wonderful dictionary, as well as one online. So where else would we might find a Lesage piece other than here in the warehouse at this mysterious farm in the Midwest? Well, we could see one in the United Kingdom's National Collection Trust, a desk by Lesage, predating this by about 10 years, at Attingham Park. Anyway, going back 200 years to when Lesage was alive, he fulfilled commissions for various French royal palaces and chateaux, such as the Palais Royal in Paris, just north of the Louvre, the Château des Tuileries, Palais des Tuileries, which burned, which was right in front of the Louvre. Also for the Château de Neuilly, that also burned, those damn candles. And the Château de Saint-Cloud, Trianon at Versailles. And he also delivered pieces to one of these social political figures that we really associate with this style back in the day, the Duchesse de Berry. And some of her pieces in this indigenous blonde French wood, it was a trend at the time that she's sort of credited with having championed. Well, some of her pieces are on display in the northwest wing of the Louvre, Charles X room of the Paris Museum of Decorative Arts. So anyway, she ordered some pieces from Lesage for her Château de Rosny. Château de Rosny, Rosny, that would be just like the French to have an S that's not pronounced in there. Whatever. She ordered pieces. That's a good sign. It's sort of a testament to the relevance of Lesage's operation at number 2 Street of the Battlefield Barn, where he began working in 1821. And very interestingly, we can take a look at a primary source inside of this famous dictionary of 19th century furniture, Le Mobilier Français du 19e siècle, by Denise Ledoux-Labarde. She made this dictionary of thousands of previously undocumented 19th century furniture makers. It's really an incredible addition to the history of the decorative arts that she did this. Anyway, I use her research daily, and it very much adds to my business. But if we open this wonderful dictionary to the Lesage section, we can read a tiny entry written 200 years ago, which attests to the fact at his establishment, number 2 Rue Grange Batelière, we can find absolutely everything which is the most gracious and the most desirable that contemporary fashion can offer. That's a very quick and poor translation. Whether it is furniture in indigenous woods, bird's eye maple, or exotic ones, mahogany too, like the desk at Attingham Park. There are also bronzes, dorures, gildings, clocks, candelabras, etc. In one word, this is one of those places that we just don't know how to recommend enough for any assortment of all that is rare and precious, made by the greatest artisans of our land. Pretty good review of Mr. Antoine Nicolas Lesage, and it's thanks to research like this that we can dig right back into time and feel like he was here with us yesterday. Now, I will add, as we close this beautiful commode, that this is one of the rarer models just by virtue of its design. Of course, it's rare because it's very special in general, but it is considered to be the rarer doored type of commode called a commode à l'anglaise, an English commode, a commode à vantaux, a doored commode in French. And these are considered to be a little bit finer than the ones which would have drawers built directly into the facade of the piece. These English drawers, as they are called, are clearly hidden by these two beautiful doors. And in addition to this being a doored commode, the more special variety of commode, we're going to notice that this one presents hinges that I have not seen on any other type of piece. These hinges allow for the doors to open at a much wider angle than what you would expect, granting you easier access to perhaps your pants, as these are also called commode pantalonnière in French, a pants commode. We can imagine someone storing their foldable pants or undergarments inside of this piece in some grand bedroom 200 years ago. There's a whole discussion about whether these highly decorative commodes were used in more versatile ways. You certainly see them nowadays in all sorts of rooms. People use them in living rooms and offices all over the place for their decorative value. But here in 1821, this probably was a commode pantalonnière destined for, albeit a bedroom, which even when I see them displayed in museums, they're not necessarily in a bedroom. They're regularly in different types of boudoir, salon, living rooms, sometimes offices. Anyway, this new trend of using light indigenous French woods, such as bird's eye maple here, as opposed to exotic Caribbean mahogany, well, that is a shift that we see aesthetically away from the look of the Napoleonic Empire. Now, Charles X furniture, however, is still very much neoclassical, meaning that at the time it was a new expression of ancient Roman decorative vocabulary, the aesthetics of these bygone ancient republics. We can see that with these wonderful palmettes that are inlaid at the junction of the doors. However, unlike previous Napoleonic furniture, which was trying to get you to feel yourself as grand as an ancient Roman emperor, it was a proud style. This, still intending to evoke the ancient world, this is a romantic style, and it seeks to ignite within you, through its impossible beauty, a type of nostalgia for this dreamlike, long-gone past that actually never happened. We still have something neoclassical, like the styles of the previous 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. This is a particularly romantic and doleful style, as opposed to the triumphant style that precedes it. Now, this style also chronologically occurs at a certain height in the timeline of the traditional decorative arts, here around the 1820s, just before industrialization causes furniture as an art form to decline into something which is much more commercial than it is artistic. But here we are at the end of that timeline, at a culmination, an apex of centuries of evolution of tools and techniques which allow them to produce things with a level of execution which is really unparalleled, considered to be the height of the art of inlay or marquetry in the history of furniture. Even if maybe not everyone loves these very simple and elegant neoclassical designs, it's very hard to refute the excellence of the precision with which they were executed. But it's part of that impossibly precise execution that ties into my discussion of this style's romanticism. It is better than anything that really happened. It's romanticizing the past in a way that is exaggerated. But I'm thrilled that we're able to conserve a trace of this really exceptional piece online, because it is something against which you can judge some of the pieces that you're encountering as a general reference to show you what great decorative art from the pre-industrial era looks like, so that you can understand that most antiques out there are actually devoid of the artistic qualities that make us interested in furniture from the past in the first place, ironically. But certainly if you were ever to be looking for Charles X furniture, you might keep this one in mind as a visual reference point. So with that being said, everybody, I'd like to thank you for 5,500 subscribers. Please do subscribe if you find this information helpful, and I think it'll do anybody who's interested in this subject or anyone decorating their home good to have access to this basic library of reference pieces and this basic orientation in furniture history. I'll see you all at the next video. Thank you.